Of this class, the 4-8 and okay, so you are at the right place. Let's make sure this one is. John, why do you prefer to stay so far and yet there there? What is the problem? Usindanganywe na Lona anakaanga nyuma. So you guys, what are you doing with the elephant instead of being on your nini? Eh? You are watching news? Oh, at least that is positive because I will know you are a TV person. At least I will know you are a TV person. And please don't hide behind the big thing. There is something I need to have still, so I will need to carry it along. So let me make this announcement. Your chapter, some people had not given their chapter 2 by yesterday, so it is not marked. If you have given it today, it's not marked. Many of the chapter 1 and 2 are together, and I slint them in where assignment 2 is, where chapter 1 should be. So you get it there together, chapter 1 and 2. You get it most likely together if you had sent them before yesterday. So marked out of 10, but then it's by 4. So you have 3 by 4, that is because the assignment was out of 40, isn't it? Chapter 1 and 2 was out of 40. So if I've marked out of 10, then simple mathematics will tell you that will be okay. So I want you to look at your work, put notes somewhere if you want to ask questions, because when I come, I'm just going to look to get a list there. We are going to go through again the expectations of chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because from today, I need to release you to finish up and go and collect data. Looking at most of the assignments, we could say they are really near pathetic, especially, yes, Chelsea. Exactly, the words as I'm using them, because I spent a chunk of some time when we were here teaching about independent variables and how they need to be found in a topic, how they are the mothers of the objectives and how they should, rhyme together, so that even in your chapter 2, you are doing literature review on the same things. So I think only a few have managed to get that alignment. We will refresh our minds on that and then look at issues. So chapter 3 is a little bit complicated. We look at it and then chapter 4 and 5. So be on your work so that you could ask me questions in a minute's time. And let me ask you, why are you guys not on your documents, the one I've sent you? What's the trouble with it? Si nimekupatia feedback mami, nasema watu waingie. Kwani watu hawasikizangi yana nini? No, please, wakati wa maswali utafika.
You see, the topic is factors that influence brand
I'm just telling you wakati wa maswali utafika. Si hiyo ni swali unaniuliza? Mr. Masharia, I'm buying a lot of time, so yes, njoo yako. We are actually right there. We are actually there. Okay. Usifukuze nini yangu isianguke. Can I share with you to avoid getting into trouble?
We're actually live. We're actually live on YouTube.
We are actually live. Right now. Right now we are live.
Yes, we're live. So you can proceed, and then I will.
And is my mic on?
Yeah.
Yeah. It is on. Check mic, iko sawa? Iko sawa. So I don't need to shout, I don't need to be so pathetic shouting like no man's business.
They can hear you when you speak. It will be more than good.
So I hope you guys, you have looked at some of the corrections I have made, and maybe they could be many, but nevertheless, we probably could look at that later. Some of you asked me about the structure of the independent study. I have already sent you that structure, but I want to make, a quick recap of it. You need to have the title page. You also need to have a declaration, an abstract, table of contents, and then you define the terms. Definition of terms. Which terms are these? These are the terms that are prominent in your project. So as we went through last time, we're just going to recap the expectations of chapter 1. And I'm just recapping because looking at, let's say, a quarter of you have missed some of the things. Introduction, that would be your very top as the first thing in capital letters, centered. So it should be first level of heading. Okay? It is capitalized, it is centered, chapter 1. Then what follows down there is not one the many things I've seen with you. What follows there is introduction and background to the study. So you should have chapter 1, then down there you have introduction and background to the study. Again, centered the same way. Okay? Yes, do you have a question? Please come this way if you are straining to listen. Yeah, if you are straining to listen, come this way. There are seats here. So 1.1 you have introduction, and you know what you need to do. People are writing a lot of stuff there, almost a whole page on that introduction, 1.1. No, you need to introduce the chapter. You don't do background there. You introduce the chapter. Chapter 1 entails the following things, and you know them. Background to the study, all the just the subsections. All that is what you need to do so that your reader understands this chapter 1 is about what? Statement of the problem, purpose of the study. So you just narrate those things in a sentence, not more than 2. What for? What else will you be doing there? Then 1.2, you have background of the study. And I did explain last time what background of the study entails. Okay. Every problem on earth has a background. So you have to look at historical background of your subject a little bit so that you can put your reader into the context where you're coming from. And then you see 1.3, you have statement of the problem. This is the most critical part of your project. So if we read your problem, statement of the problem, and we can't get what is happening, then there is a problem. Please note, although statement of the problem is your own problem that you are investigating, you must cite other authors to validate what you're doing. That's why last time I said, no research you are going to do is new. So whether you're doing social media, against traditional media, how is the social media affecting or impacting the traditional media? Those studies have been done by 1 million people. It is only you who is not checking. It's only the context which is different. Sawa sawa. So that statement of the problem, give it some validation from another writer, another author of the same. I'm saying your context is different from theirs, but you need to do that. Now, purpose of the study, don't waste a lot of time, a lot of space about purpose of the study. You need to say, the purpose of this study is to examine the effects of social media on traditional media, if that is your topic. So you waste a lot of time. You start to review literature again. No. The purpose is to do what? Is to establish the reasons why adolescents consume, this kind of content. So there isn't much you're saying. 2 to 3 sentences are enough, period. You will have other sections to review literature. Purpose is just like that. Then you move on to 1.5, research objectives. And I have said have more than 3. Don't have more than 3. I know the reason why. You are going to get issues and problems when it comes to analyzing them. So as few, 3, so that you don't have a lot of problems doing that. So the other time we were here, I think it should be a month ago, we looked at this. We looked at this 1.5, research objectives. What all of you are doing, you are trying to find out something. You are trying to establish something. You are trying to determine something. You are trying to investigate something. So, your 3 objectives must be framed in a way that this is an investigation, is a determination of something, it is a finding out of something, it is an establishment of something. So it goes like, to find out the reasons why this happens, or to determine the reasons why this happen, to establish the reasons why this happen. So if your objectives are not phrased that way, rephrase them. I have tried to do that for about 40 students. It's a difficult task. Okay? They should be phrased that way. Please make sure you have an objective that is examining an independent variable against an dependent variable. That's why we also took time last class to look at these things we're calling independent variables, dependent variables, moderating variables, and so forth. But for the purpose of this class, you're looking at relationship between independent variables and a dependent variable. Don't get into issues of intervening or moderating variables. Okay, so looking at the feedback on how this section has been done, not well at all, against also the way the conceptual framework has also been done. I'm giving you an example here which you could share, maybe 2 of you. So that we know what we are doing. Okay, so let them pass. Okay, so very quickly, that's another study was being done by somebody else. Look at the way the 3 objectives are phrased. You should be looking at that paper right now. Be on the first page and don't look at the paper. Where you have specific objectives, of course, and you have done that. At my 1.3, there is the general objective, and that general objective, the way it is phrased, is very close with the way the topic of that project is. It almost reads like that. Yeah, when you look at the general objective, it almost reads like the way the topic or the title of the project reads. So it is general in nature. When you go to the specific, then those three are derived. They are derived from the general. Read them. Read the first one. Now, be able to identify in the first one the independent variable and the dependent variable. Go to the second one. Be able to identify the independent and the dependent variable. The third one, that way. What is common in those three objectives? Vion. What is common in those three objectives? Zhao. Yes, what is common in those three objectives? Wamugo. What is common in those three objectives? Yes, which one is it? Please speak louder so that you can add value to the rest of us. Yes.
Dependent variable, which is
Yes, see how in all those three objectives, the dependent variable is one. Those three statements end the same way. Because what we are trying to examine here is the first independent variable. How does it relate to the independent variable? The second, the third, with the same. And that was my expectation of this project. It still is. You didn't get it. I won't take you to committee. You're just going to make corrections. Just going to make corrections. I think here is where the rubber meets the road, isn't it? Yeah. Yes, that is good feedback. That's good feedback. There is where and I remember Gift, you were on my back on the conceptual framework. Now, get to the second leaf. Get to the second leaf. So you see, check how it pans out. Look at the variables there, the relation, the objectives, what we are calling, and see how it aligns very, very well. That is the alignment I was looking at. Mugo, now you see? Okay, when I see like this, I know things are working now well. Please, this is what is just to give me some energy as I move around. So don't think it is anything complicated. So I think out of 40 students have marked their work, I think, let's say 10% have come near getting that concept. At least 10%. 10% of 40 is 4. Please give them a clap. So you see, so look at those two sections and the topic. I mean, what does the topic say? Let me write the topic for you on the board so that you look at it against the objectives of the study and then the conceptual framework. So this is how it reads. It reads motivation, social context, and parental mediation of Nairobi adolescents seeking of sexual media content. So if you look at the objectives themselves, you see the differentiation of what we are calling media content. It is both TV and radio. So, but just look at the topic against the objectives of the study, check where the relationship is, and then check the conceptual framework. Is there alignment? Yeah, alignment is whether, they are almost one and the same thing, or one informing the other fairly, very closely. Is that the situation, Joy? Is that the situation? How about your topic, your objectives, and your conceptual framework? Yes, how about yours now? Is it aligning? Are you sure? So while we are there, let me show you another alignment. Chapter 2, I want to skip chapter 2 of that work. Does not look at any other thing apart from those 4 things. Which 4 things? The independent variable 1, 2, 3, and the dependent variable 4 things. So it looks at question. It reviews motivations that adolescents have for seeking out sexual content. It also reviews the social context in which they do it. The third thing, it looks at parental mediation. What we call, what is the other name for parental mediation? How do your parents mediate the content? Not that which you consume, but maybe your younger siblings. Is there a way they do it? Kinda. Somebody is saying kinda. Okay, so that, the 4th thing, then, it is this question. Because here is where the dependent variable is. The seeking out of the sexual media content. And that area of chapter 2 explains, how the youth will seek out sexual media content, what it is for the purpose of the study, what does it entail. It defines it and explains it in details. So that's it for chapter 2. You don't do anything else. I think the only other thing you do, you will summarize it, and then you bring in the component of the theory. So that is the 4th alignment. Now, the theory. Where does the theory align with these things? How does the theory align with these things? What do you think is the theory used by this person? Yeah, for you to answer that question, you need to have met somewhere with theories of mass communication, with theories of media studies, with theories of journalism. If you haven't met with them, it is difficult to tell. If you met with the theories and you burnt the books, it is okay so long as you can remember the content. Why is it users and gratifications?
Because the adolescents are being motivated by their own gratification. They want their own, they want to watch something that they're interested in.
Okay. It is indeed users and gratifications, but probably I'll move from where Wamugo is to say the theory explains that. By the way, this theory is not a media effect theory. It is a theory that explains how people themselves and why they choose to consume certain media products. Why? What reasons do they have? What do they want to gratify in their life? Is it about entertainment? Do they want to learn something? Do they just want to have fun? Do they, yes, what? Peer pressure, yes. Companionship. That is why you watch some movies, isn't it? It explains the reasons why. So basically, and that is what the author of this work wanted to find out. Motivations are reasons. What reasons do the Nairobi adolescents have or report for their wanting to consume specifically sexual media content? The context of the basically talks about people who consume a lot of violent content against those who consume law. The research, looks at those two and sees the attitudes or the behaviors that are likely to come out of that. So if you want to check children who are watching a lot of violent movies and so forth, you want to find out, do they get those attitudes or those behaviors? They see them in the news. Social learning, what would be the topic? What does social learning theory say? It is about the way media, especially like dramas and soaps, model people's behavior, isn't it? Social learning. So when you're doing something like that, please be able to. So now you know where the place of theory is. Because I have seen some drugs of chapter 2 without a theory. Somebody says the theory to be used in this study is media effect theory. There is no theory called that. There is no theory called media effect theory. That is a cluster of theories. And there are many. They explain how the media, impacts people who watch, maybe TV, listen to radio, and issues of cultural imperialism, dependency theory, they are all in that class. Agendasetting, they are all in that class. There are many. When you say you are using a theory called media effect theory, please, you are saying you don't know what you are doing for that section. So don't do that. Read more. So let me jump. I'm jumping so that you catch this alignment very well. I've talked about the topic. Come out of your phone. The topic, the objectives. Then we have talked about the conceptual framework. Then how they align with the theory. I'll tell you something else that must align. It is the questionnaire, the research tool. It's a questionnaire. The questionnaire that was using this topic has 5 sections. Section 1 starts with demographic information, just to collect demographic information from the research participants, where they live, how old they are, which classes they were in. They are about that. They are about that. They are asking the kids to indicate the measures that their parents are using to control the way they consume content. Sawa sawa. Is it DSTV password they are using? Do they say at this particular time after 9, you can't, watch? Or do they edit the songs? Or do they, or sometimes they fail to pay the channels? Some parents also lock the TV in their bedroom. It's a kind of control. When they are going out, and they know a certain kipindi will be there, it's not very good, they don't trust. These guys will not. So, all that, and you will be interesting. When you look at the findings of the study, everything is there. All those things. So, the fourth thing, the last thing was looking at this. The seeking out, the real seeking out of sexual media content. So you see now, after you have the questionnaire, after you have the tool, what is the next thing you do in a study, in research? What is the next thing you do? And this is revision, because you have already done research methodology. We basically revising in a very fast-paced way. You have the tool, everything you have. What is the next thing you do? You can't analyze if you have not done something. What do you do after you are done with the tool? You have refined it, you have checked the grammatical errors and so forth. Wesley, what do you do? I know this time of the day is problematic. Thinking levels, sometimes they dip. Let me try. Lindia, what do you do with research after you have done with the questionnaire, it is ready? What is the most immediate step? You compile and analyze what? From where? Yeah, you collect data. How do you analyze without collecting? Come on. I'm saying the thinking level, sometimes they dip at this time. It is the hour. It's not the person. So I want to tell you the other alignment. That must be found in your work. You see, you go and collect data on these things. When you return with your 300 questionnaires or 50, they contain information on these things. So the other alignment is now, Lindia, you start now after you have the questionnaire, you start to analyze. How do you analyze? These are the sections of analyzing. You will start by analyzing the demographics. How many were they? 55, 25% female. 25% is female. What will be the males? Gift. How many will be the males? Yes. 25. 75, you are listening. Okay, and the other things, where do they live? Maybe you had given them the estates in Nairobi, they were ticking, so you have that data. The other thing you do in chapter 4, you look at this. You analyze data on this. You go to this section, you analyze data. You go to this section. And lastly, this one. You are discussing, you discuss also those things in that alignment. You are making conclusions. You make conclusions on those things in their sections. You making recommendations. You make recommendations. If you have recommendations for all the variables, then you make recommendations for all the variables. If it's only 2 out of the 4 that you end, then you make recommendations on those 2. So Wamuko, do you now see how research is easy? Ni watu huwa wanatukana research tu wanasema ati ngumu iko wapi. It's something called alignment. When it comes to thesis, one thing we always check is the alignment. From the topic where you started, all the way to the recommendation. You know the recommendation is the last thing. You check, is there alignment? If there isn't, then there's a problem. So the question is, do you now know where you got things wrong? Do you now know where you got your 3 from? Yes, and you know, Nancy, were you in the first meeting? Yeah, so this is the problem. And even today, guys, I don't know what we're going to do with them. Because the next time I meet with you, you will have, you know, you'll be giving me a whole package, a project, bowed together. You know, reading this and that, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'll be saying, this is my package, the next time we meet. So please make sure you go and do the right thing. So I wanted to give you a dose of what we are calling alignment. Don't bring an aligned work again. So your variables must speak to one another. In your topic, there must be found the variables of the study. Your objectives section must rhyme. You understand? You may have missed some of these things in research methodology unit, but then you know this is a higher level unit, so you need to make those corrections. And there is a lot of plagiarism. Some people have lifted either their research methodology work, and I did warn, you know, there is electronic trail in your portal where I have said, don't. I have actually persuaded you not to copy, not to plagiarize. People are still doing the same. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? If you present other work that you have presented elsewhere, how on earth do you think I won't know? With all this world of, you know, checks. Because I just put your work somewhere and it comes out. Even by reading content in some chapters, in some sections, I know this. Even the tenses they are telling, it's work that has already been turned in elsewhere. If you did that, I've of course rejected some of the documents with a red. But if your work, you think it has passed, it is plagiarized, don't risk, start afresh. Don't risk, start afresh, so that we are having ethical issues, you know, observed. Okay, so please hold on to that, never forget, so that as I take you through the, I think we were at least at 3.5, isn't it? So that we can move, but be knowing that alignment is what majorly. That is the number one we are looking for. So we were at 3.5 or we were at 3.6? Of course, the research questions, you just turn the objectives into a question. Chelsea, si ndio? Hiyo hata hakuna kazi mingi. You just frame it in a way to come now in a question. And please make sure the editing is classic. Don't bring the Com2 something level editing. You turn it, but you turn it well into a question. So 1.7, sometimes some people will call this significance of the study, rationale of the study, justification of the study. Looking at the structure of your project, basically the expectation is you explain a little bit the reason why this study is important, but most important, who are to benefit by that importance? Who are to benefit? Because your study is being carried out because of a social problem, okay, which is affecting some people somewhere in the society. Who are these? So how important the study is and the people who it is going to impact. Now, the limitations and the limitations of the study. Of course, in some places, these are two things, but in your structure is one thing. Now, this area, please you need to, I gave you 3 books. I gave you Babi, I gave you, is it Mugenda and Mugenda? And there is a third one. If you need to confirm these items, confirm them. But people are giving some very frivolous limitations. Very frivolous limitations, very petty. The fact that you can't walk through a certain direction to collect data is not a limitation. Money is not a limitation to research. Because if you say you don't have enough money to go there to collect data, we will tell you to take a loan. Yes, you take a loan because ignorance is more expensive than knowledge, isn't it? So please dwell on issues of design. What do you think are the limitations of the design? Of course, number one is I know all of you will rely on self-reporting of the subjects, isn't it? You take questionnaires to people, you will trust that, you know, whatever things they are writing there, the yes and no's and so forth are right, isn't it? Okay, so that is basically a limitation. Where there is self-reporting and there isn't much triangulation. You are not using other tools to counter-check what these people are telling you is true. Especially, look at a situation where you go to interview kids and you go home with data. Can you trust it 100%? Yeah, so scholars sometimes what they do is they triangulate. They will look at the kindergarten teachers or the parents who spend time with these children, and they can ask them similar questions to ask them, do you think these kids do these things that they are telling us? At what level? That is called triangulation. And mostly you guys are not triangulating. So self-reporting is a limitation. The other limitation is your study is just a point in time study. It's just a point in time. You're just going to somewhere in the forest at Nairobi High School with your questionnaires, collect data, come and analyze. What is the problem with data just collected at a point in time? Especially, look at these things you're saying, the motivations people have, the social context, the attitudes you are trying to investigate. What is the problem of going somewhere at once, pick data, and come and report? Content might not be very authentic. Why is that so? The problem is, it is very difficult to understand human behavior just by visiting them or talking to them in one day. It's very difficult. So people who do longitudinal studies being done over time. 5 years ago, they carried out the same study. 10 years ago, they will do the same thing. That way, over time, you can be able to look at your findings or your conclusions and, you know, draw cause effect. And you say, this causes this over time. But the kind of study you are doing, you're just reporting things as you were told. You have no other way of trying to know last year or 2 years ago how things were. So limitations of the study. Let's move on to assumptions. This is something simple. I don't want to get there. I have explained 110, theoretical framework. You have to use a study that very well, you have to use a theory that informs your study, your variables, that explains the things you are investigating. Sindio, if you're looking at the way people consume stuff, or if you are looking at the way newspapers, whether newspapers or TV stations influenced the way people voted for 2017 general elections, what is the theory, Akesho? What's the theory? Sorry? I haven't heard. What is the theory you're likely to use? DJ West. You want to check, we had general election last 2 years, so you want to find out the way the Standard and the Nation, were covering Jubilee and the NASWA staff and writing, did that in any way kind of tilt voting? What theory are you likely to use? Yes? Yes, the aspect of agenda setting. Yes, sorry? She had said that. Yes, she had said that, and I said I haven't heard. I just wanted to get it from the group. Yes, but please remember agenda setting has many variants. You talk about framing theory, priming theory, you talk about, there is also actually CNN effect theory. You need to cross-check that. It's very innovative, very interesting, the CNN effect theory.
Joe Lakatai is online. Kama Elisa swali. Joe Lakatai.
Lakatai. Yuko wapi?
Online.
So you see, the CNN effect theory, it talks about the way CNN covers things like violences and wars and so forth, and then how that politically or socially.
Joe Lakatai is asking the question. I think he had answered this question in the one before.
Okay, so Joe is asking, after I come up with the research questions, does the lecturer have to approve them, or I, as the researcher, is the final option? So you, the researcher, you are the final option. So what I'm just doing is to help you to refine, so that you don't go and do things that will not work. So if Joe can hold on a little bit in this section, during this section, so that he is sure, or we can add value to his work. So let's move on. Then the conceptual framework, and I had finished that. I think I started with that and I ran with it very well. And you have another doubt about that, isn't it? Okay, so literature review. Of course, you have these items. You have these items in your chapter 2, isn't it? So I've actually explained to you the gist of literature review is to analyze your variables. Why do you do that? You analyze the variables because you want to give the current study a context. You want to look at others, isn't it, who have looked at these things. I keep on telling you very many times, some of the things we are doing have been done before. The context is the difference. So when you are doing research, you look at what others have done, and you review those variables. You check and you talk. What did they say? Maybe in America, in Tanzania, whatever it is, you have to. So that's the reason why you can't afford to just use haphazardly appropriated internet content. You must use electronic journals if you want to do good work. So many times you have alternatives. You can go to the library, look at the books, but do we have all the books in the library informing all your objectives? We may not have. So, of course, library is one option. Then the electronic journals. There is a lot of stuff. Go to the library. They will help you to get the passwords. In fact, you can use some of these passwords at home. You can use them here. Look at your objectives. You can do smart searching. Look at the objective. Is it talking about what it is talking about? Search that content around your objective. So that's number 2. Number 3, and number 4 and number 5, there are many, but still there is the option of plagiarizing. That option, do not follow it, because it will not take you to where your destination needs to be. Yes, please.
Do you summarize the variables, or you have to go through it one by one?
So Muko is asking whether you summarize the variables or you go one by one. I don't understand very well, but...
For example, if it's about motivation.
You do an analysis.
On motivation.
Yes. And you do a thorough analysis of the variable. A thorough analysis. Please note the word. This is not in description. This is not explanation. It's deep. It is structured. So you have to look at studies done on motivation. What did this one say? What did this one say? What did this one say? And this is a section by itself. It's a whole section. You can't mix it with another. It is probably this would be 2.1, 2.2, 2. So you can't mix. A variable is analyzed on its own, so that you don't have mix. Yes, Joe, that's what I'm saying. So that when you come here, you're looking at social context. Is it about time? Time is about context, isn't it? Is it about place? Place is about context. Is it about actually time of the week, like weekend? That's a context. Place, is it sitting room? Is it bedroom? Where is the context? So to answer Mugo, that's what I'm saying. It's a thorough looking into the things pertaining, and you are doing it very systematically. You move on and you move on. So that is the main thing. And looking at your structure, you have to introduce that section. So these introductions, the section for introduction, the one, whether it is 1.1, 2.1, 3.1, 4.1, 5.1, you just need to tell your reader the things that that chapter contains. Isn't it? The things that that chapter contains. I've said for chapter 1, you have to say this chapter has the following. It has background of the study, it has, problem statement, and you finish finito. Don't get into the other business. Yes, Nancy, finito means finish. You finish. Okay, so then you get to 2.2, and there is where you review your first variable, 2.3, the second, 2.4, the third, 2.5, the dependent variable. People need to understand exactly what your independent variable is about. Then there is a theory. As Muko was asking, when it comes to theory, you have to analyze the theory very well. You have to analyze the theory very well. And I have given you the guideline, but I can give you the guidelines very quickly. If it is agenda setting theory, follow this sequence for the purpose of this class. Explain who the authors or the profounders of the theory are. Is it one person? Are they two people? Then when was the theory authored? Is it a 1947 Is it a 1997 innovation? Then you move on. You could tell us these people who were doing these macobs, or whomsoever they are, what were they doing? Were they sociologists? Or were they psychologists? That's provided, but don't belabor that. What you need to be more careful about is looking at the core assumptions of the theory, gender setting. What is it? Is this theory pre-proposing? What is it saying things happen? Okay, so that is important. That is the core issue with analyzing the theory. You have to look at the core tenets, the core assumptions. The following thing you need to look at with the theory is its application. In real life, how does it apply? In real life, how does it apply? The other thing is you have to look at the critique of the theory. So all your theory sections must have that critique. These theories are not gospel. They are not all powerful. They have been turned upside down and found not to have weaknesses in this area or the other. So please, that must be there. And sometimes people use two theories to take care of a certain part of the, of your objectives, because one cannot inform or cannot explain all the variables. Yes, somebody wanted to ask if you have not forgotten. Sorry? No. Differentiate the two. I think in chapter 1 is where you do all those things. In chapter 2, I think you look at other related theories. But where in chapter 1 you are reviewing that theory, please make sure you do that. Now, we want us to move to, of course, you will conclude that chapter. There is a summary for chapter 2. There is a summary for chapter 2. Now, I want to take you to the challenging part, and this is the chapter 3, because it has the research and design. So, of course, the expectations are there. You, of course, have the sub-areas for chapter 3. You have them there. You have to introduce the chapter 3.1. But one of the most confusing things I've seen with the students is this question of research and design. Anybody with an idea what it entails? Anybody with an idea? Yes, Melissa? Exploit. Okay. Or experiment it, whatever you'll be doing. Yeah. Somebody else from this? Yes, Michelle. No, there is no answer that does like that. There is no response like that. In any case, I don't belong to your culture. I don't know what that means. You know, this non-verbal is very cultural. I'm told you go to Korea, you do like that, you are refusing. So I don't know the position. So Melissa has explained, but probably in very low volume, it is the plan. We could say the research design sets the pathway for your study as far as the methods you are going to use are concerned. It sets the pathway. The design you choose, it is the plan that you have, either for data collection, for the tools you are going to use, and the way you are going to analyze the data. So you can't imagine, you mess the design, you mess the entirety of your chapter 3. Because it sets forth, it is the pathway. So if you use descriptive, then you know even the tools, that's going to impact even the way you will collect data, even the way you will analyze the same data, isn't it? So that's it. It is the structure, it is the plan, it is the pathway you use. You need to be careful so that you don't say your design is this one, and yet when we go to another section of chapter 3, the tools do not look like they belong to that design. So you could say that if you want to get it right, you can think of the research design as the structure of the research, or the glue that holds the elements of your project together. Please, I said this is water to give me a little bit of energy. It's nothing more to it. So again, it shows all the major parts of the research project. It shows all the major parts of the research project. Listen to what Orotho says. He defines it as the scheme, as the outline, as the plan of your research project. And the combo and the trump are just close to this definition. It is an arrangement of the data collection tools, the analysis tools, and all the things you're going to do. So briefly, I'll mention a few types of research design, so that you know the choices you are going to make will be informed by, and I think the easiest, the commonest design I see being used at this level is descriptive design. What do we mean by that? Its major purpose is basically to describe the state of affairs of a phenomenon, just to use your word. What is phenomenon? It's a big word, eh? I hope it is not some musamiati for some of us. Yes, of course, coming from research methodologies, okay? So you basically describe. You're not doing a lot of other things. And mostly you do this by interviewing your study subjects or by doing questionnaires. You pick a questionnaire. So in other words, you can do both, you can use both qualitative and quantitative tools, both qualitative and quantitative tools in descriptive research. You can use both tools. You can use informant interviews, for example. You can do focus group discussions. And yet, you can still do questionnaires when you are using the descriptive design. So ensure the following if you want to use this design. Of course, I will give you these notes later. Where is the class rep? The class rep is it John? Of course, this is distance learning, so there is no class rep, but you are appointed so that you can help us to do that. So you make sure that you construct questionnaires or tools that will elicit or solicit the desired information. So you must construct tools, questionnaires, whatever they are, so that you can be able to solicit the information you desire, whether it is about motivation, social context, whatever, you do that. Number two, you have to identify the individuals that will be surveyed. Okay, number three, and this is simple, identify the means with which the study will be conducted. And I think that is important. We will jump very quickly to the experimental design. You are not going to do experimental design because the time you have is not enough for that. Mugo, you wanted to do an experiment? You require time. You require a laboratory. You require a control group. And you require the other group so that you can maybe give this group injections, the other one you don't give them, and after a while you check whether they are at the same level of viral load or whatever it is. Now, in experimental designs, cases or subjects or study respondents, you could call them cases, you could call them subjects or study respondents, you randomly assign them to an experimental group that receives some treatment. Okay? You have an experimental group that receives some treatment. The first, second column, those ones, they receive some treatment. Let me have an example for media studies. If maybe you want to check, is it kindergarten children, whether watching violent content can change their behavior to violence, you probably would look for 1 or 2 or 3 sections of them watching. So you expose them to either some 30 minutes or 1 hour. Of course, it can raise ethical issues. Let it not be very violent. So you let them watch a section, a session, another one. Okay? So what do you do with the other group so that we jump there? Then that is the experimental group, the one being exposed to those violent cartoons. Then you have the control group, which is not subjected to the exposure of the violent content. You understand? So, assuming the two groups were initially equivalent, those kids, when you started to do the experiment, they were at the same levels of violence in their normal lives. Then you came to them and you divided. This one, you expose them. This one, you don't expose. That is the situation. So assuming the two groups were initially equivalent, after the exposure of one group, you can now compare their levels of violence. Sawa sawa. So one of the benefits of this design is the fact that cause and effect can be easily determined. Cause, effect can be easily determined. In other words, we're saying you can, at the end of the day, be able to come and conclude, indeed, exposure to violence can affect children if really it shows that kids who were exposed, their behavior later was more violent than the others. Because you were in a lab. You know, that's just a lab. You don't need to have blood and you have a certain room. That was the lab you were using. So you remember the studies you are doing, that's why I was telling you, you can't confidently come to say you have these cause-effect conclusions. You can't make them. You will have findings. You'll be telling me, this is how you found, this is how you found. But then there will be that shortcoming. An experiment, yes, you can report cause effects and do that confidently. Now, you have very many types of experiments in this world. There are the pure, there are the quasi. Please come in today, mwalimu hana shida. There's the quasi, there's the pure, there are the Solomon, all these kind of things. You will please look at them at your own time. So you also have case study designs. And I've seen quite a number of you with the case studies. Do you have case studies, Chelsea? You yourself. And do you have a question? I think you have. Am I assuming too much? Okay, so a case study. Of course, you are doing a case study, and I think 20 to 30 to 40% of you are doing case studies. Some people think it's lazy people who do case studies because they just want to go to one place. You have this topic title saying Africa, case study of Africa, Nazarene University. It's because you don't want to go far. You don't want to do a bigger sampling. Is that the truth? Yes. So Chelsea, so that's the situation. Eh? You don't want to go far. That is interesting, and you are accepting. No, it is. I thought Chelsea is accepting, because now I will start limiting the case studies. I hope you will not be beaten because of that. I think we're too late for that. Case studies. In the case of a case study, you look at all the subjects in that organization. You research all of them. So you use it as the population. You look for the sample. A case study. The research is just confined to that African Nazarene University or to that Nairobi University or wherever. So you don't go out. Of course, those of you who are not doing case studies, I expect you to be going from one location to the other to collect data. Okay, but if you are doing a case study, I expect you look at a context in detail, holistically. Basically, that is where it is expected. So, African Nazarene University, if that is your case study, confine yourself there. Don't go out, so that you do a real case study. Correlational design. Correlational design will enable you to look at the relationships between two or more variables. And hence the word correlational. Correlational design enables you, the researcher, to assess, to evaluate, or to look at the relationship between more than one variable, two or more variables. In correlational design, you compare, for example, the independent variable to the dependent variable, and you look at the relationship therein, and you draw the levels of significance in what you're looking at. And therefore, that says you must do inferential statistics, because you are looking at a relationship, and you must report the level of the relationship. How do these variables relate in terms statistically? So you have issues of significance. I've seen some two people with hypotheses. So when you use hypothesis, you're looking at statistical significance of variables. So you are likely at the end of the day to report the 0.05 either above or below, whatever the case may be. So just to give you a compost example here. For example, if you are comparing examination performance of a group of university students like you, who prepare their own meals every day, and those who eat at the cafeteria, okay, you are likely to use a correlation design. I will repeat that if you are comparing examination performance of a group of university students who prepare their own meals every day versus those who eat at the cafeteria, then that's basically what you're doing. So at the end of the day, you are likely to come and report that, hello, those who cook for themselves, in fact, perform more better. And probably you will tell us, why do you think so? I'm just giving an example. It may not be so. But there is that level of correlation. I want to move from designs to something that is likely to, of course, you have a lot of other designs, and each design has its own advantage. I will give the notes, but I want to take you to the question of sampling techniques. Sampling techniques. And I think sampling technique is somewhere around your, where is it? Sampling techniques, it is somewhere in your chapter 3. Remember, you have a population. The bigger group, where you are going to source your sample, isn't it? So remember, you also have the target group, target population. Remember, then you also have a sampling frame. Remember, then you have a sample. So if you are doing 50 questionnaires, that is your sample. Your population could be 10,000 people, isn't it? So you sample because it is not possible at a particular time, if you are not the government, to do questionnaires for the 10,000. So that's why you sample. You don't have the capacity to go to every of the 10,000 homes. So you have a sample of 50 homes. So that is why you sample. Laura, you don't know why you sample. Yeah, but when you do like that, I'm saying I don't understand nonverbal very well because it has context. Yes, that's the reason, basically. So, what is the sampling technique? What does it entail? Chelsea, what are you thinking? You must be thinking something. You have the sample. So what is the sampling technique? It is the method It is the procedure that you use to bring together or to get the 50. So we have said your population is 10,000. Your sample is 50 or 100. I don't know how many. So the procedure you use to narrow yourself to those 50 is the sampling technique. So my challenge will be then, if you thought you're just going to get, your friends to fill the questionnaires, then you have a problem. You have a problem. You must use a sampling technique that is not biased, that is scientific, and if you want to do a good thing, that is likely to be representative of the 10,000. Sorry?
What if you're sampling size and you want to concentrate on media organizations?
You want to do a study at NTV or NTV Citizen? Many. Yeah. Yeah. So let me hear the question. I have heard you want to do a study in media houses. Citizen, KTN, NTV, Kameme.
I can only use that specific organization to get my data.
But your study is about media organization, as you say, because you have not told me it is one. So your study is about media organization. So my response is the same. You have to do sampling. You have to have a sampling technique that will, because you are not doing a census. You are not doing all the 200 media in Kenya, all 300. So you must have a sampling technique that will take you now to either Citizen or there or there. Not you choosing, the nearest destination. Is it Citizen? I walk there. No. Okay, yes. And we are going to look at some of them, yes.
For my project, I'm doing about the role of radio editors at KBC, and this is only one person. So do I
You could say something to sell yourself out. The role of editors at KBC. Can you flesh out the entirety of the topic?
or the whole topic, the role of radio editors as gatekeepers of media content at KBC Radio?
So let me hear the question now.
Do I need to the sampling, and it's only one person who I'm going to for all the information that I need?
You cannot do the independent study. This is a very big project. You can't do it on one person. Nay, you can't. You can't. And in fact, your topic, look at his topic. He says role of editors. And then he's telling me he's going to do one person. Is it true?
But I'm focused on KBC Radio.
KBC as a media house is researchable. But remember, you have said one editor. Have I heard that? That's what I want to correct. KBC as an organization is researchable, yeah. But not one, you are not collecting data from one editor. So you can do your study in one media house. I'm trying to differentiate. You can do your study in one media house in KBC, but not in one media house in KBC, one person. No. And in any case, that is not the intention, Wesley. That is not the intention of your study. Your study says editors. Basic grammar tells me it's more than one person. So please Probably what is in your mind and in the paper is different. You need to harmonize the two. You need an alignment so that the paper is saying what is in your mind. There are so many editors in KBC. Remember, KBC has like, is it 10 FM radio stations about there? Or let's say 5, then you have a TV station here and there and so forth. And in all those FM radio stations, whether it is KBC English, Taifa, the other one, Ma, whatever, they are all editors who are gatekeepers at a certain level. You know, you can't miss like 30 people. So again, you must, if they are 30, you must do some sampling. You must do some sampling. Or you do census, where you walk into each of the 30, because they are not too many. And off you go. In fact, we are almost leaking. We are almost leaking the project. Yes, you wanted to say something. You wanted to tell him that way. Okay? Anybody else who think they have something, they thought something will do? I'm going to give you at least 3, and later you can cross-check.
My question is based on
Where? The front page. Right somewhere. Let us go back there. I can see you, maybe you have internalized what we are saying, and what is remaining is the cover page. So we're going to go there. We will come there. Yeah, that is possible. Because you see, some of these guys have just done research methodology. And the whole thing is very live in them. Yes, it is live and fresh. So we look at 2 or 3. I think we will be good to go. And remember, John, you are the class rep. So sampling designs are majorly divided into 2 broad categories. I think that's important. Sampling designs are majorly divided into 2. This is important because it is going to determine the one that you choose. Okay? One is what we call probability sampling method. On the other hand, we have what we call non-probability sampling methods. Tuko pamoja? So let me give you AKAs for the same. If you say scientific sampling method, you're also saying probability sampling method. I'm saying if you say, or if you see somewhere, scientific sampling method, it is also probability sampling method. So non-probability is also unscientific. And if you say scientific, is unscientific. And the other one is another AKA. If you see random sampling method, is the same as scientific, it is the same as probability. Random, scientific, probability. So you have unscientific, non-random, and non-probability. So those terms will mean one and the same thing. So very quickly, we see what probability means. So the key components in probability sampling is randomization or random selection of the subjects. The key components of probability sampling is what we call randomization or random selection of the study cases. Remember, study cases, we also called them what? Study subjects. We also called them what? We call them cases, respondents, or subjects. Okay? Random selection. So in probability sampling, the people, the places, and the things you are investigating are randomly selected. The people you are investigating, or are they things? Are they animals? Are they birds? They are randomly selected. They are randomly selected. In the case that each member of that population has an opportunity to be part of the sample of the study. So that is what it means, to be randomly selected. It means each member of the population, the 20,000. Yes, each member of the population has an equal opportunity to be part of the sample of the study. So your population is 40,000, and the sample, you are going to do how many questionnaires? 100. So that's your sample, isn't it? So we are saying, it means then each of these 40 have an equal opportunity of being part of these 100. That is what it means. Scientific, random probability. That's what it means. The opposite is also true of the non-probability. This is very scientific. You have to organize yourself in a way that these 40 have an opportunity of being in these 100. So the sampling must take care of that. And we are going to see in a moment how that could be. So non-probability doesn't go to the extent of representation, making sure that you select the sample in a very systematic way to make sure people have an opportunity to be, because that is not the case. And we are going to see that in a while. So I'm going to give 3 examples of probability sampling. One is simple random sampling. The other one is stratified random sampling. And then there is the systematic sampling. After we are done with this, in 10 minutes, we will be done. So the simple random sampling is referred so because it is simple. It's not complex. All you need is a relatively small and clearly defined population to use this method. Just a small and a very clearly defined population. Students of African Nazarene University, how many are they? If you are doing a study here, you can do simple random sampling. The easiest method of simple random sampling is which one? What do you think? Anybody with an idea? Give an easy example of simple random sampling. Anybody with an idea? Let me first talk about the word random. I want to disabuse it. The word random in grammar doesn't mean the same way in research. So in English grammar, yeah, I can see the ears are earring. In English, when I tell you to pick 5 people at random, tell me what you are going to do. According to what? I mean, and by the way, can you do it? So that we ask you specific questions, yes. And please start with John. Just do. Yeah.
Melissa, Chelsea, Wesley, John, Michelle.
So let me ask you, why those?
Because they're people I know.
They are the people you?
They're the names that are on my finger.
Yeah, you see now, that's the bias. She knows them, isn't it? She knows them very quickly. Maybe they have shared a lot of classes. But in research, when we say you pick randomly, it is the opposite. Indeed, it is the opposite. You must do a scientific study. Look at this class. What you do is you go to the registrar or to the registrar, pick the class list. It has number 1 to 25. Then you do scientific sampling. Maybe you can do systematic. You can pick the nth. If they are 40 and you want 5, you can pick number 1 and number 9. Move on all the way to that, isn't it? And you pick your 5. That way, you can even close your eyes, or you can even look at the numbers without looking at the names. Number 1, you don't know, you are not seeing the number. 1, 2, 3, 8, 9. 9 plus 8, 17. Some people are not thinking that mathematics is very difficult now. So, that way you see, your bias was not there. That is random sampling, by the way. And that specific one is called systematic. Systematic. Please say systematic. Yeah, that way you'll never forget. But simple, if we say simple random sampling, the simplest example I can take is get your kofia or some bakuli, okay? It is the two you are going to use. Then you have 100 people. You want to pick only 10. So you have 100 papers, cut them, you write the names of the 100, put them in the kofia or whatever it is, shake them, call somebody from out, or 10 people, each to pick for you 1. That is simple, random sampling. Or the 100 in the kofia and an opportunity to be picked. Si ni kweli? Yeah. Simple, random sampling. It is as simple as that. So you want to do a study across section of Kenya. You can't go to all the 47 counties. You know, you could do simple random sampling there and get yourself to 7 counties. Okay? Of course, you can get biases. Suppose all the 7 counties are Siaya, you know, Kisumu, Homa Bay. You know, that could happen. So before you do that simple, you have to look at each question of proportionate and so forth. So you have your simple, you have your systematic, you have stratification, stratified sampling method. How do you do stratified sampling method? You look at the homogeneity of the population, and you pick the stratas in that population, because there are 20,000, how many stratas are there? How many subgroups are there, isn't it? Stratas. So instead of going to all these 20,000 people, make sure if you look at a cross-section of that population, can you see certain subgroups with common characteristics? Isn't it? Can you see them? Young people, the youth, women, men, or professionals of different calibers. So you'll find you have like 7 stratas, or you have like 6 stratas. Think of Nairobi. If you are doing a study, and I've seen somebody doing a study within Nairobi primary schools, you can do stratification. You can look at boys' schools, that's one strata. Sindio? Girls' schools is another one. Mixed is another one. Day schools is another one. Boarding yet is another one. And there is also a mongrel, I don't know the name to give it, where you have a school, it has a day section, it has a boarding section, it has girls, it has boys, it is a mix of things. I don't know whether that is high range. Who knows high range? I think, yeah, the last time I left it, it looked something funny. A mixture of many things. So you have stratas. You have stratas. Then, if you have 7 stratas, then go to every strata. If the population is 20,000, you are looking for only 100. You can decide in these 7 stratas, then I will pick 13, 13, 13, 13. I have my 100. And then in every strata, you must do another level of sampling. How do you get the 13 in that strata? So that becomes a question when you hit the ground. You can also do cluster. And the cluster sampling is closely related with stratified sampling. You look at vast populations of people strewn across large geographical areas. Students write only when you are reading a book. But when you are not reading a book, there is nothing you are saying. Okay? So that's what you call cluster sampling. If you choose it, if you're doing like a study which they are saying something Kenya. That's a very vast geographical area. And there are so many people. So again, you can now divide that huge area into clusters. For example, in Kenya, what clusters would you use? What clusters would you divide the population in? Sorry? Counties. But even before you reach counties, you have who works within the provincial administration here. You first have the regions. A while ago, when we were in the high school, they used to call them provinces. I think you went to high school when they were calling them regions. You still found provinces. Then you people, you are old. Huwa mnatundanganyanga hapa ni watoto, hakuna kitu. This 2010 constitution, it is very old. I think now it is going to 10 years. It's now going to 10 years. Jamani, mtoke shule mkafanya kazi. Yes, ndiyo sasa tuweze kusaidiana kujenga taifa. The more we have these guys sitting in schools, in classes, the level of unproductivity, yes. It is, but now we have changed them to something else. I don't know what they are calling it. Magoa will tell you. CBC. I hope it will be as competent as they are saying. So you can start from the level of the 8 regions. Are they 8 or how many are they? I think they parallel them with the provinces. Eh? Are they 8, are they 10, wherever they are, then you look at those. Then you know below them, there are others. There's another cluster. I think there is where the counties come in. Then from then, I think there are some counties, isn't it? Then they are all the way to wards. then all the way to your village where you come from, although you told me your village is Karen. Hakuna mtu anatoka Karen hapa. Are you Karen Bixen descendants? So you see, right now, we have talked about 4. Simple random sampling, stratified sampling, systematic sampling, and a cluster sampling. So I want to take us to non-probability sampling, a sampling that you not mind randomizing. You not mind using a system where every member of the population has an equal chance, where you bias. Actually, this one is biased. And we give them different names. You're going to read from my notes. Okay? You call them convenience, quarter, purposive, whatever they are called. And these ones, mostly you use qualitative tools. Because you realize when you are doing that random sampling, the one we have just talked about in those 4, you mostly are doing quantitative studies. You mostly are doing quantitative studies when you are doing random. So when you come to do non-random, it's mostly qualitative. It's mostly qualitative, where you do in-depth interviews or you do focus group discussions. Tuko pamoja. And that's hence the names. Look at what they are saying. Convenience, sampling. Please don't do that. Quarter. Quarter parallels this cluster. But you see, these quarters, every subgroup may not be represented in the sample. Look at purposive. Purposive. You're looking, for example, for people who have carried out abortions. How can you do systematic? Where do you pick the register of those people to pick the nth? Are you serious? But you really want to do a study because you never know. That study would be very helpful in the society. If you reach them, the reasons they give you, how they do it, would be helpful in doing what? In helping the society avoid, isn't it? So they are researched, but you can't research them that way. Because in the first place, how do you reach them, Melissa? How do you reach them? Their families, I mean, how will you know this family as an aborter? How will you know? Sometimes you have to know one. You make effort, you know one. Yes. And that one could tell you another one. Sindio? Yes. That one, maybe they have a club. Maybe they have a small group they meet to share. The same way with the issues of HIV, isn't it? The same way with issues of cancer. Because you know some of these things are stigmatizing, but they must be researched. So of course today you go into big hospitals and you meet clinics where you can meet some of these people. But a while ago it was very difficult to meet HIV/AIDS positive people in a group. It was very difficult to even be allowed. So you could be led into one by another, by another, by another, which means basically it is a friend who will tell you about another friend, isn't it? And there is where there is no objectivity in that kind of situation. So, and that's why you do focus group discussions using those ones. They are probably hard to find group. You must research it. Commercial sex workers, isn't it? So look at the differentiation between the two. Sometimes some research is done using two different sampling, those categories. You make sure you are doing partly a very scientific probability study, but you complement it with maybe a focus group or two, because the advantages of non-probability is you meet with people, you talk with them in depth. You understand their thinking, their behavior. You understand not only the behavior, but even the attitudes, which are hidden. You talk, you probe, you are given answers, you ask further. When you are doing questionnaires, it's a question of yes and no. Well, how will you know how people think? Yes and no. So, of course, there you are. You need to understand the advantages and the disadvantages of some of these techniques. And you must understand the data collection tools are aligned to the sampling techniques. So, as I've said, if you are doing the scientific, you're likely to be using questionnaires. If you are doing non-scientific, you are doing, let's say, purposive, you are trying to look at certain attitudes and behaviors among a certain section of the society, you're likely to do a focus group discussion. You're likely to prepare a schedule where you will sit down with people and talk to them about these things. You'll probably be recording so that later you can transcribe for the purposes of analyzing data. So I'll take you very quickly to data analysis. I think it is your 3.9 or 3.10, I don't know, thereabout. It is the same way. If your sampling is probability sampling, then you are using statistics to analyze data. So you must use both descriptive and inferential statistics. You must describe that data, and because you are looking at relationships between variable X and Y, we have seen academic performance with where guys are eating, the time they are taking to go and eat in the cafeteria and the time they are going to cook for themselves. You can't get that relationship without using statistics. So you understand. But if you are doing the non-scientific, you're meeting with people in groups who are hard to find. You don't require statistics to do analysis. You use themes. You have to write down what they told you. You have to, if you are recording, you transcribe. Who doesn't know what it means by transcription? What does it mean by transcription? You don't know or you know? You can try. Yeah. You are trying very slowly. Try to benefit other people. Yes.
I think it's where you listen to what people, or when you're talking to someone, you break down exactly what.
I don't think so. Jane, what does it mean? And you are very quiet today. You know, sometimes quietness is also communication by itself. So I don't know, is it some communication? But please try. Sorry? Or you ask me what I was asking. You know, that is also, yeah, so that you can refresh your mind. Because I think you know what to transcribe means. Do you now know? Yes. No. You record the group, you go home, to transcribe is to, you either use a machine or manually, you listen, you put down. You listen, you put down, you put down. So you analyze, you look for themes. If you had 10 people or 5 people, and you had 4 questions, you look at the themes. What is occurring frequently, for example? The themes. And you know, themes come along with sub-themes. Themes come along with sub-themes, smaller themes. Okay? So that's how basically you do it. The other one, you have to key the questionnaires to a software whether you are using Strata or you're using SPSS, I don't know the one that you are going to use, you post the data and then you ask the software to give you, you now derive the logical regression, or is it chi-square, is it ANOVA, is it MANOVA? How did you want to manipulate the data? You do it. The other one, you look for themes, you analyze them, and then you write the report. And if you are doing the two of them, you do the same. The one for questionnaires, you do statistics. The one for focus group, you look for the themes, you analyze them, and you combine the two, so that the two methods are now speaking in harmony. Do they show agreement? Do they show divergence? It is upon you now to explain why there is difference when you ask the same questions. When you ask the same questions using different methods. Why the difference? You have to explain. Chapter 4, I have explained very, very well. How many things do you do in chapter 4? Because I have remained with 10 minutes only in this class. And the class rep, who is John, you need to tell me to walk out if I spend more than 10 minutes. I'm sure you'll be happy to do that. Okay, so how many things will you be doing? I'm sure you are just fresh from your research methodology. So you basically present the findings and make discussion. You present the findings. We say the findings are all about these things, isn't it? And the sections we want to see are these sections. The headings are these ones. So you present the findings now. Explain the motivations from the questions you had in the questionnaire. Because when you key in the questionnaires, you get response from the software. So you have to read that and deduce the findings. Okay? So the other thing, after now you have findings, Jen, after you have the findings, and you now can be able to present them, you do something briefly before you leave chapter 4. You discuss the findings vis-a-vis literature review. You see, before you went to collect data, you reviewed the study variables, isn't it? And you were told, Melissa 2015 found out in America in a study that the motivations of students there to watch TV was to enjoy, have fun. That's what literature was telling you, among other things. But what are the current findings showing? In fact, they are showing is just they go to watch the movies and so forth for companionship. It's peer pressure. So you show the differences and the similarities between your findings and the findings of others, which you had analyzed in chapter 2. If I don't see that in your work, my friend, you will have a problem. If I don't see that in your work, it will be bad. So Chelsea, just to be sure, what have I said about discussions? Yes, so findings are showing these are the reasons your respondents have reported for doing that. But earlier, when you reviewed literature, you had seen something else. So you have to contrast that. And if you had found the same thing, if you have found present study reporting same findings as other studies, Beatrice, how do you go about explaining those things? Or let me rephrase. A study had been done in 2002, somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, in a high school there. The following were the motivations. The one you are doing now from, I think, KU shows a different thing. How would you explain the difference?
One of the results is coming from the interaction.
Yes, Laura, what would be the reason for the difference? One was done in 2001, almost of the same thing, and it was done in America. US, we are doing it today, just here in Kenya High. The findings are showing difference. What would be some of the reasons? The timings, the technology, the way people perceive things work, all those things. The time, 2001 and 2019 is a war. Things change over time, isn't it? The context is different, as she is saying. One is in an undeveloped world, Atlanta, Georgia. Another one is in another world. I don't want to mention which world is that. So you would expect, isn't it? Would you not expect differences? And there could also be similarities in findings, and therefore you have to explain. You make a discussion, and briefly, there you come in. You come in with your very own interpretation of what you think the difference. You cannot use any other thing to interpret the difference, isn't it? You use your thinking, and not just any thinking. You have to look at the environment and glean the interpretation from then. She left in protest because time, I think I remain with like 5 minutes of the 10, isn't it? Okay, I hope she has not left in protest. So let us jump now to chapter 5. And please don't worry, it's just 3 things expected from there. Summary of the study, you make a conclusion, and you make recommendations. And you are home. Summary, these are the things you are summarizing. Since how? And it is, let me tell you, it is the easiest yet the most difficult. Oh, sorry, you had not left. You know, I had asked whether you are, is it you? Oh. By the way, she was also the last to come, but it's okay. So I'm saying the summary, that area is most difficult, is most easy. Why am I saying so? My permanent class rep. The summary. Because you use fewer words, it is a synthesis. Summary is a synthesis. You have to look at the findings in this area. And there are many, it's like 2 pages. And you summarize it in a paragraph. So remember in the high school, I think you learned something, is it a gift? What was that area? Of condensing something big into something small. They call it, you read a comprehension or something, I can't understand well. Yes, they say something like 500 words, summarizes into 50. Yeah, you know, at the high school, you did that kind of training so that now you could utilize those skills. And I am sure you are not forgotten. Beatrice, How do you forget? One, education, you know they usually say education is what is left after you forgot what you were taught. So if you keep on forgetting everything, my problem, my friend, you end up being illiterate. So you understand. So you must do very meticulous synthesis of 2 to 3 so that you bring everything, so that somebody who has no time to read 2 pages of findings will go very quickly to the summary area and they get it. So nani alikuwa anasema kuna shida? But make sure the summary remains faithful to those findings, so that you are not telling people something that didn't happen. Something that didn't happen. Tell us what happened. So the other area is a conclusion, and I usually say, when you are doing a conclusion, which is also a very condensed area. By the way, chapter 5 is very finyu, kidogo sana. Because conclusion is an area where I say what you're looking for is the question, so what? If these are the findings and you have this summary, so what? That's what means conclusions. What about it? So what? What does this mean to this 20,000 population, to these 500 members of your sample? What does it mean? You have the findings, so you look at the conclusion. What does it mean? So what? So look at recommendations, and you realize it is also a very, very scanty area of your work, because you may not actually make recommendation for all the 5 variables. It may not be necessary. But if it is necessary, yes. You say, you know, you had told me students are publics in your study, their parents, the Ministry of Education. You had also said media houses, isn't it? So your recommendations should target the people who you had said will benefit from the findings of the study. You had said media editors, that is where DJ West is. You had said media editors, you had said the MD at KBC. You had also said the media fraternity in general. So when you are making recommendations, you make precise, concrete, succinct recommendations to a specific group. Looking at the findings, looking at your conclusions, do you have one of the groups that was to benefit from your study, making a specific? And you see, the question of policy and the practice comes in here. So if you are done a whole study, you're not saying policymakers could use these findings to do this and that, then what were you doing? It's a big joke. So research looks at problems in the society, and a researcher is supposed to give solutions, isn't it? So there is where you're making recommendations. That's kind of solutions you are trying to prefer to that. So you have to write chapter 3 very quickly. You look at the subsections, you write them very, very quickly. Then you come up with a questionnaire, watertight questionnaire. A questionnaire is a measuring tool, is a tool to measure constructs. It's a tool to measure variables. so that in chapter 4 you can report findings. So after you do that, go and collect data. That is what you were meant to. Come and do chapter 4, chapter 5. I will give you the date you are going to give me the work. But meanwhile, chapter 3 is due, I think, in a week's time. Then, chapter 4 and 5 that will just be one deadline. So in terms of cuts, the way we look at life in the universities, you have 2 remaining, chapter 3 and chapter 4 and 5 put together. Those ones you give me at once. Now, where am I going to get your final exam? Remember, you did the concept, that's 1, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are 5 things. That would be something to do with, I think, 50 or 60%. Your final exam is the report you are going to give me, bound together, signed by you, declaring, this is my original work. That is what now I will look for. There's where we will get your final marks. Sawa. The entirety of it. In fact, the good thing, it will start again. Chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The evaluation of its entirety is that 50%. So even if you didn't do well in chapter 1 as a cut, you still have an opportunity to redeem yourself. You didn't do chapter 2 as a cut, you still have some chance of redeeming yourself. So on your marks, set and go. The ball is in your court, the ball is there, the court is there. It is about kicking to make sure, but don't kick anyhow. I think last night, Harambee Stars did me some favor. They did not kick anyhow. They had a target and they hit the target for several times. So please make sure you hit the target. Bring home. Bring home something. Bring home something. Michelle, tuko pamoja? Yes, leta kitu. Ionekane kama ni kitu. Please be paying visits to the library where we have the thesis section. If you want to glean a little bit on how stuff is done, please catch my brain anytime you have an issue. Please be careful with the deadlines. You say you have performed poorly, but looking at these people, I'm seeing good grades at the end of the semester. Yes, I'm seeing good grades. So please believe with me that indeed it is possible. So in the next few hours, I will give you of course you have the outline here, but I'm going to put it again on inners. Move with chapter 3, but make corrections now. In chapter 1, in chapter 2, align things, make sure things are working on well. Now you are more educated, you are more informed. We usually say it is difficult to learn research in a session, but you see, for you it is a journey. And this journey started a long time ago. So it is a learning journey. Yes, you wanted to ask something? You are okay. Somebody else wanted to, I pick 1, 2, 3 questions and we will, for me, I'm done. So it is upon you. John, my time is done. But questions, I can field them.
For the final project, are you still going to use the same title that we use, same topic, or are you going to give us a different?
Okay, I think Lindia is asking a very interesting question, whether for the final project, the thing you give me the package, whether it will contain different topics, different things from the ones that we are doing, or can be able to answer them very quickly. Don't look for where she is seated. Just give me the answer. Yes. It is the
title.
It is
Titles that we use in.
unless I have tweaked it for you, because I was tweaking or even changing. I mean, if it works, it is the same. It is the same, but you know, we are saying now with corrections, because now you have an opportunity to even correct. The corrections for chapter 1 will not add value to the cat in chapter 1, but they will seriously add value to the final project. I tell you the truth. Yes, they will seriously add value. So again, I think that also answers you in terms of the difference. It is just the value adding, the corrections, grammar. And finally, make sure the project you give at the end of the day doesn't have grammatical errors. We will deduct marks, because this is a senior class. Yes, you wanted to ask about grammatical errors, whether they will be, but then where has the question gone?
It's still to do with chapter 3. I wanted to ask something.
You wanted, but now
But I still want to ask. It's very important.
ask.
Okay, so it's something to do with the instrument validity.
Yes.
I do not understand how to go about it with the questionnaire.
The instrument validity, instrument reliability. One of the things you can do with the questionnaires very quickly without wasting time is, let me counter check your questionnaire just to be sure. See some of reliability and, you know, it's like, you know, you have to do a pretest. Okay? When you pretest, it's a quality assurance. It's about those validity issues. In fact, that's most important in most research, like what we are doing. Pretest will stand for that. Make sure you take 10 people, or I don't know, whichever number. You have to be supported by literature, so that you test even the grammatical understanding of the question. If you find your pretest sample is having problems with understanding the questionnaire, and also you also find the time. Is it going to take 10 minutes, 30 minutes? If it is going to take a very long time, be careful. You are likely to whittle it down. You understand? That's why pretesting is very important. And the other thing I've said, if you can, you know, get me very quickly, let me run through it. It is another quality assurance business. And that way you are assured that the parameters, you know, of the study are well within. It's about quality assurance. Yeah, so Nancy, and a question? Joe, you have a question? And Joe, I have to finish with you so that I put everything in there. I have marked some of them, and I think we are going to look at. Yes, please ask.
In chapter 4, where there is data presentation, analysis, and interpretation, what is the connection between that and literature review?
The connection is in discussion, sir. Where there is subsection discussion, it's the connection. And Joe is asking the connection between the findings and the literature review. You have findings about motivation, for example. In the literature review, you had reviewed this issue, and you had been told how studies in the past found out those issues. So you look at literature, what it was saying, today's findings, and try to see whether they harmonize, and you say so, and you say so. So if there is a difference, because that's what I was asking a while ago, if there is a difference, there is where interpretation comes in. You must come and explain that difference. And we have said sometimes the difference can be in terms of time taken since since the literature was done. If it is 20 years, you expect, even if it was youth and you are doing youth, there are changes in the society.
But I can quote the same authors that I quoted in literature review to explain to interpret my data.
That's what you do. Exactly, you do that. You bring Leslie 2015, the one who was in literature review. You don't introduce new research in discussion. You are pointing out to those who are in chapter 2, naming them by the names you name them, and discussing the issues. Now I can feel it is seeping. It is getting in. Please, I'm open for discussions about research. Research is the easiest, the simplest subject you do in university. Yes, anytime I'm open, you know my hours is between saa moja ya asubuhi mpaka around saa 3 ya usiku. From there, don't call, but from there you can call. Of course, we have in-house communication. You can SMS. I am thinking we can have another face-to-face. You will tell me. You will tell me. If you don't tell me, I won't tell myself. Yes. So if you reach somewhere, you are doing the final project, you are bringing it together, and you think there are things you need to be put into perspective, I will be good. I will be good. So class rep, I don't know how you get hold of people in the air. Probably you told me you have a WhatsApp. I don't know. You get my brains and I can be able to be helpful. Please go home and go well with the blessings. And those who are getting left, you can go to the library to do further research. Mr. Masharia, thank you very much for putting us on air. Yes, you made it. You made it. Congratulations. Yes, Mr. Masharia, yes, our technician. Yeah, for putting us on.
To catch that when I was on my way coming.
Oh, yeah, and we were able to give you some response. I don't know whether you got it.
Research questions, whether you have to approve them before
Yes,
you take them.
yes. And Ndina Nyangweso was saying she is using both cultivation theory and agenda-setting theory. Yeah, thank you people for coming. Yeah, we didn't manage to interact with this very much. We didn't manage to interact with this very much, but thank you, Mr. Masharia, helping to highlight my question. Oh, Masharia asked a question for somebody. My topic is the role of, so I hope it made sense. Education is what is left after you have forgotten what you learned. Niulize swali. Yes, they can always, Mr. Masharia has lead.